From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you live here on this Tuesday, October 18th, 2016. Thought I was going to break my promise a little for a second there. It took me a second to figure out what was going on with my mic, but we have a pretty decent show for you today. You have the Game 3 of the ALCS, which took place last night. Game 3 of the NLCS taking place tonight. Rangers beating the San Jose Sharks last night at the Garden. They will now, San Jose will now take on the Islanders this evening at the Barclays Center. But we will begin today with the New York Jets, and I emphasized yesterday that if the Jets lost last night, that would be the end of their season, period. And last night they did more to prove that their season was over than anything. The number 2 rush defense in the league got torched for about 200 yards on the ground. David Johnson, who is in his second season, looks as though he's going to be the biggest pickup in fantasy this week, as he ran for 22 attempts for 111 yards. Of course, the 58-yard touchdown run in the first quarter. 3 touchdowns on the game for Johnson. Again, this is against the number 2 rush defense in the league. Carson Palmer did not have the best of nights. He had a solid night, 23 for 34, 213 yards, 1 touchdown. Fitzgerald caught 6 passes to the point where I believe they actually sat Darrelle Revis out for a while. But then you get to the Jets, and you get to the quarterbacking situation for this team, which is proving more and more to be what we all thought it was going to be, which this team does not have a quarterback. This team does not have a quarterback, period. It doesn't. When you sit there and you watch Ryan Fitzpatrick look about as overwhelmed as you could possibly look about as confused as you could possibly be. "16 for 31, 174, no touchdowns and a pick." That pick, fortunately, was the last straw. And I understand you do not want to take Fitzpatrick out of the game for just whatever. I mean, the guy's giving you, 10, 12 million reasons not to just take him out of a game. But there comes a point, and that point should have came last week. There comes a point where you have to say, you know what? Can't do this anymore, man. So you put in Geno Smith, 4 for 6. The two that he missed, one of them he fumbled, and the other one he was picked off. I mean, come on. The Jets got beat on the line, on both ends of the line of scrimmage. Their offensive line got torched, and so did their defensive line. Their defensive line left massive gaps. They couldn't rush the quarterback for anything. Again, no sacks. That seems to be the point of emphasis on New York football this year. No sacks, no pressure to the opposing quarterback. Fitzpatrick was under duress most of the night. Forte and Bilal Powell combined for 12 carries for 29 yards. Where was the Ryan Fitzpatrick we saw last year? He's getting paid like the Ryan Fitzpatrick we saw last year. But now in the last four games, 10 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. 10 interceptions and 2 touchdowns. You've got to be kidding me. You have to be. You have to be. This is about as pitiful as it gets right here with a starting quarterback. It does not get much worse than this. He has a quarterback rating of 63.4. I mean, come on. He wanted to get paid like a big time starting quarterback. He got paid like a big time starting quarterback, and now he is showing you that he is just a backup. He's not a big time starting quarterback. He just isn't. I understand. Oh, it's hard to play. I understand. Oh, it's hard to play the position when you're under duress. You know, true, true. But 10 interceptions in 4 games to 2 touchdowns. And then Todd Bowles comes out after the game and says Geno's and Fitzpatrick is still the starter. What are you watching, man? What are you watching? You figure if the Jets would have a leg up on any team, it would be Arizona because Bowles worked with Bruce Arians for so many years. But it didn't seem to matter. It really didn't. They gave up a touchdown in every quarter. The offense was nowhere to be found. I mean, nowhere to be found. The team had 205 yards passing. And 33 yards on the ground. That is how little that offense moved last night. 239 yards of total offense. For the Jets. 239 yards. Their total net yards is 230. Compare that to Arizona's, whose total net yards were 396. Yeah, they look good. No need for a quarterback change. No need for anything. And I'm sitting there and I'm hearing during the game that, oh, well, Woody Johnson's getting impatient with McCagnon and Bowles. I'm sitting there going, this is just the middle of their second year. Typically, you would give a head coach, general manager 3 years minimum before you figure it out. But with performances like last night, I mean, they may not make it through their second year. At least Bowles might not. Because you cannot tell me Mike McCagnon has not done everything he possibly could to get the best possible talent in here. They paid Muhammad Wilkerson. They brought in Brandon Marshall. They brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick, who last year worked. This year, no. Sheldon Richardson's going to have to get paid next year. They brought in Matt Forte. They tried. Maccagnan has tried. But Bowles has been questionable. Keep in mind, this is a defensive-minded coach. The Jets have the worst point differential in the NFL. The Jets' point differential is minus 69. Worst point differential in the NFL. That's ridiculous. It really is. That means you're behind Cleveland, who is god-awful. It's to the point now. It's to the point now where, like I said, this team is done. The team is done. There is no hope. There is no longer any hope for Jet football in 2016. There is no more hope for Jet football in 2016. Jets have allowed 164 points this season on defense. Are allowing 27.3 points per game. And as far as the offense goes, they have scored 95 points of their own. A third of those points came in the Buffalo game. Just imagine that. You're through 6 games already this season. You haven't even scored 100 points. The only team worse is the Buccaneers, and they've played one less game than you have. Meanwhile, the Jets have almost let up 170. Cleveland has scored more points than you and are averaging more points per game. Same with San Francisco, who's god-awful. Same with Tennessee, who isn't good. All of these teams have scored more points than the Jets. Every single team in the NFL except Tampa Bay. And the Tampa Bay has a game in hand on the Jets. This season, if you are a Jet fan, this season is over. And I don't want to hear about the penalties last night. Yes, the penalties were ridiculous, but still, did it interfere with the outcome of the game? No. The Jets, either way, were going to get pummeled, period. . We're going to get pummeled. Period. Stop. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how this team can go from being on the verge of a playoff year to being 1-5 and looking completely hopeless. Now, I understand Carolina was in the Super Bowl, and now at least they've scored. At least they score points. They're averaging 26.8 points per game. Are Carolina. The Jets aren't even averaging 100. And Carolina does not look hopeless. The Jets look hopeless. The Jets absolutely do look hopeless. To the point where, again, I understand. It's frustrating. I'm not even a Jet fan, and this is frustrating. It's frustrating to watch this team be so bad. I can only imagine what it's like being a Cleveland Browns fan. It's frustrating to watch a bad team play. It really is. Again, and especially when the Jet defense has been the way they have been. Second rushing defense in the league got ran over yesterday. Ran over. The Jets' defensive line could not get any pressure on the quarterback. And the offensive line couldn't do anything to protect theirs. Either one of them. Couldn't get a running game going. We talk about the Giants not having a rushing game. The Jets don't have an offense. And you're sitting there with guys like Brandon Marshall and Matt Forte. Brandon Marshall is one of the best receivers in the league. I mean, come on. I'm seeing a lot of Jet fans revolting now against Fitzpatrick. Saying, you know what? Geno Smith and Bryce Petty the rest of the way. That's fine with me. And you know what? It would be fine. I was watching the game last night. And I said, you know what? Just throw Bryce, after the Geno Smith pick, I said, throw Bryce Petty in there. You know what? Throw NASCAR legend Richard Petty in there. He couldn't do much worse. Throw anyone with the last name of Petty in there over these two. If you are holding out any hope for this Jets season, you know what? Just stop now. We knew this was going to be a tough stretch for the Jets. This opening stretch of the season was going to be very, very tough. Forget about being 1-5. If they were 1-5 and these games were close, then you know what? Maybe we wouldn't be saying as much. But this team is 1-5, and this team looks bad. The Jets lost on opening day by 1 point to Cincinnati. They have not gotten after the Buffalo win, these last 4 games, they have only been within 10 points of their opponent once. And that was Seattle of all teams. And have managed only a field goal in 2 of those 4 losses. These next four games, the Jets have a favorable schedule, I will say that. Baltimore at home, even though expect that to be a loss. Cleveland in Cleveland. If the Jets lose to Cleveland in Cleveland, then just write off the team. Forget about write off the season, write off the franchise. Then you have Miami, who's not good. And then you have the Rams, who the Giants play this week in London. And then mercifully comes their bye week, week 11. I wasn't expecting this team to be 5-1. Three and three seemed logical, and I don't think you could be upset with 3-3. Cincinnati game, all right, you probably could have had the Cincinnati game. Buffalo, you got Kansas City. Kansas City would have been a tough game. Seattle, you weren't getting. Pittsburgh, you weren't getting. Arizona, you weren't getting. So 3-3 would have been acceptable, would have been right around where you would have wanted the Jets to be. 1-5 looking like this is not what you expected to see, not what you would have wanted to see, period. And just think about it, they have one more ESPN game this year. They have another one against Indianapolis in New York. The Jets embarrassed themselves on national television last night. Do we realize this? Please tell me we realize that the Jets embarrassed themselves on national television last night. The team embarrassed themselves. The coaching staff embarrassed themselves. The quarterback embarrassed himself again. Fitzpatrick has only been the top passer once this year. And that was the win against Buffalo, where he threw for 374 yards. Forte was the top rusher in the game against Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Since then, he hasn't even gotten 50 yards. And last night was the first time since the Buffalo game that a Jet wide receiver was the leading receiver. Brandon Marshall was 70 last night. Compare that to Eric Decker's 126 against Buffalo. This team has no offense to speak of. Since that Buffalo game, since the one win this season, the most points the Jets have scored in a game was 17 against Seattle. They put up 3 against Kansas City, 13 against Pittsburgh, and then 3 last night. I would keep McCagnon, to be perfectly honest, but everybody else on that sideline, boy, you better have your hands on deck because you are all under a microscope. Everyone is under a microscope. Everyone has to watch out for their jobs. That includes Coach Bowles. And you know what? After last night, that should include Ryan Fitzpatrick. Back after this. All right, we're back. Listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mix Up Sports Network as we continue on here on this Tuesday, the 18th day of of October. Of course, if you guys want to get in contact with us, if you guys want me to read something out on air, of course, I always have the Twitter page up during the show. You see right there on the screen, that is our Twitter handle. Our Facebook page also is always up. Um, my Again, the Facebook page is always up. So if you guys have any comments or anything you want to say, I will read them out on air and I will respond to them. So if you guys want to say anything, again, our Facebook page is always up during the show. Our Twitter page is always up during the show, waiting for people to comment on what I'm saying live. And we can have a discussion about it. But again, so there they are right there. As far as the website goes, I know that thing hasn't been touched since about June, so we're going to try to reset the website and get better about that. But and again, YouTube, we're up on YouTube every single day, so we're on right now. So if you guys want to make your voices heard, again, as I said, the Facebook page is always up, the Twitter page is always up during the show. So so we got so at least so if you guys do have something you want to say, make the show interesting. That's kind of the show that's the show I want to have anyway. So just one moment, I'll be right back. I just have there's a glitch on the screen here. Just hold on one second. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Sorry for that. I had a little bit of a glitch um, on the monitor with the stream, but again, so again, as I said, Twitter handle's always up, Facebook's always up. So if you guys want to contact me, that's the kind of show I want to do anyway. I don't really like talking here for an hour without anyone else getting in on the show. So if you guys have something you want to say, definitely use social media to get the word out. But going to the ALCS, I said on last Tuesday, I did not think that Cleveland had the firepower. I did not think that Cleveland was good enough to handle the firepower that the Toronto Blue Jays had as far as the offense. These two teams will go again, starting actually as the show ends. Those two will go again. Boy, has Cleveland proved you wrong, especially after last night, where last night was an all hands on deck game from the pitcher with his stitches opening up in the first inning. I mean, you heard about he has recent stitches in his pinky finger. I'm sorry, you knew that thing was coming open almost immediately, and it did. I understand wanting to be out there, and I understand wanting to be with your team and play with your team. I understand all that. But you can't, I'm sorry, you knew it was happening. That was telegraphed from a mile away. You knew it was coming. And now the Toronto Blue Jays are going to have a major, major hill to climb tonight as they have to face Corey Kluber again. Corey Kluber shut them down. 13 strikeouts and 9 hits combined over 13 in the third innings. And he still has not allowed a run. This is the exact guy you want up in this game. He will face Aaron Sanchez. Sanchez allowed 6 runs through 5 and 2/3 innings against Texas. That's not good. You're putting this guy up in an elimination game. As far as the lineups go, pretty much the same as yesterday. Carlos Santana for Cleveland. It'll be Carlos Santana, Jason Kipnis, Francisco Lindor, Mike Napoli, Jose Ramirez, Lonnie Chisenhall, Coco Crisp, Tyler NeQuinn, and Roberto Perez ahead of Corey Kluber. For Toronto, it'll be Jose Bautista, Josh Donaldson, Edwin Encarnacion, Troy Tulowitzki, Russell Martin, Michael Saunders, Ezekiel Carrera, Kevin Pillar, and Ryan Goins ahead of Aaron Sanchez. So we could find out tonight who the representative for the American League in the World Series will be. And to be perfectly honest, it would not surprise me if it was tonight. If the Cleveland Indians can pull this off, it'd be great for the city of Cleveland to now have an NBA championship and now a baseball team fighting for a World Series, their first World Series in quite a while. Taking on the winner of the Chicago Cubs and the LA Dodgers, who will play Game 3 of their NLCS this evening. So I mean this. So can you imagine if this is a Cubs Indians World Series? One hasn't won a World Series since 1908. The other one hasn't won a World Series since 1948. So I mean, so either way, a long, long World Series drought is going to end if it is Cleveland-Chicago. Honestly, it would be very upsetting if it wasn't Chicago. Not because I picked them, but because what more do you have to do? Best record in baseball throughout the season, and that's not just best record from August on. That was best record in baseball from pillar to post. They were the best team this year. So tonight for the Cubs, it'll be Jake Arrieta. For the Dodgers, Rich Hill. At Dodger Stadium this evening. That game will start at 8 o'clock Eastern. So a little bit more friendly, a lot friendlier than the Western games were for the Cubs and Giants. So again, Cleveland on the verge of going to the World Series. We will see which one of these two teams, the Cubs and the Dodgers, will draw the advantage. Remember, the Dodgers lost Game 3 to the Washington Nationals, then came back and won 4 and 5 in the NLDS. So we will see tonight. Will it be the Cubs taking a 2-1 advantage, or will it be the Dodgers? And we'll see in 15 minutes. Will the Cleveland Indians make it back to the World Series for the first time in about 20 years? We'll go to the NHL and wrap up the show when we return. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. All right, we're back to wrap up the show here today with a little bit of the NHL. The New York Rangers playing the San Jose Sharks last night. And boy, at least one game turned out pretty decent for a New York team last night as the Rangers come away with a 7-4 victory against the San Jose Sharks. And I'll tell you what, Chris Kreider, this guy has been absolutely phenomenal to start the year. Was this the third game now for the Rangers this season? Yeah, he's already got 3 goals and 3 assists. Does Chris Kreider? I mean, he has been absolutely fantastic. You got the rookie Jimmy Vesey scoring his first goal of his NHL career last night in that 7-4 win, made it 5-2. Just a little bit past halfway in the third period, only a couple seconds after Kevin Hayes scored his first goal of the year to make it 4-2. About a minute or so after that, you had Brett Burns score his third goal of the year. I'll tell you what, Joe Pavelski, he may not have the goals. He may not have the goals this year. Just got his first goal actually last night. 4 assists already for Pavelski. That, and you look at Joe Thornton, he's got 3. Brett Burns got goals numbers 2 and 3 last night. He also got assist number 3 last night. I mean, San Jose is going to be just as good, if not better, than they were last year, and the Rangers definitely look as though they are still sitting high up on that pedestal. As we look towards tonight, however, you have the New York Islanders taking on the San Jose Sharks. As the Islanders' last game on Sunday against the Ducks proved to be a very interesting one for the two teams. Islanders came out very, very strong, fell flat towards the end of the game. San Jose just looked flat throughout the game against the Rangers last night. One thing that really could help the Islanders this evening is that Aaron Dell will make his NHL debut for San Jose. So a rookie goaltender who the Islanders have never seen before, who has never played a game in the NHL before, will make his first start of the season tonight against the Islanders. So that really should help as far as the Islanders and the goal scoring goes. The Islanders have only scored, Clutterbuck has a goal, Bailey, Tavares, Brock Nelson has 2, Strome with 1, and Nick Leddy with 1. So what is that, 6 goals through 3 games? That's not a lot. That really isn't. When you compare that to Anaheim, when you compare that to San Jose, Marleau got 1, Joel Ward with 1, Pavelski with 1, Couture with 2, Bodker with 1, Brett Burns with 3. That is a goal-scoring team right there, is what that is. You also have the New Jersey Devils in action tonight, if anyone cares about hockey outside of Brooklyn and Madison Square Garden. They play the Anaheim Ducks in what I believe will be Jersey's home opener. Anaheim finishing strong against the Islanders last night. They're going to be looking for their first win of the year. The Devils will be looking for their first win of the year as well. They have played twice, 0-1-1 this season for the Devils. P.A. Parenteau with a goal, Travis Zajac, Kyle Palmieri, and that's about it. I would assume... Now, my assumption would be that Keith Kincaid gets the start tonight for the Devils. Corey Schneider started the first 2. Emerson Atem is in the lineup for Anaheim. He was former Ranger. He's going to be in the lineup tonight for Anaheim as they picked him up off of waivers, I believe. And I would also expect Jonathan Bernier to get the start over John Gibson tonight, as they really look to see who is going to be the number one goaltender in Anaheim. I know John Gibson had the fantastic All-Star season last year. He has not started out good. He has not started out well this year. The guy's allowed 7 goals on 50 shots. That and the team really just has not been scoring. You have Cam Fowler, who has 2 goals this year. Beyond that, you're hard-pressed to find any other goals. Corey Perry and Getzlaf both have 1, and that is it. For the Ducks, they've scored 4 goals over 3 games, 2 of them coming last night, 2 nights ago against the Islanders. So these are 2 teams that have been hard-pressed for scoring. Anaheim